No one in the galaxy ever thought much about Earth. To them, humanity was a tiny blue world species still learning to stand on its own. Most powerful civilizations barely bothered to mark our star on their maps. We were seen as harmless, almost primitive. Until the day an unknown fleet appeared at the edge of our solar system. That was the moment everything changed. It started quietly, strange readings on deep space scanners, a faint ripple like someone knocking on the fabric of reality. At first, Earth assumed it was a passing anomaly. But when the sky filled with streaks of light and the first alien vessels shimmered into view, the truth hit hard. Someone out there had decided humanity was an easy target. They weren't here to talk. They weren't here to learn. They were here to take. Across every space agency and defense network, alarms erupted. People watched in fear as the intruders formed a wall of metal and shadow beyond the moon. No messages, no demands, just a silent, overwhelming presence, an unspoken declaration that Earth didn't matter, that humanity wouldn't fight back. But they didn't understand us at all. What the galaxy had never expected was the one thing humanity had mastered better than most: resilience. We had spent centuries surviving disasters, conflicts, and our own mistakes. Every nation on Earth suddenly moved with a unity no one had ever seen before. Researchers, engineers, pilots, and everyday people stepped forward, not because they were ordered to, but because something inside them refused to let their home fall. Among them were the crews of the first experimental defense ships vessels so new they still smelled of metal and adhesive, built for exploration more than war. Yet these crews volunteered anyway, knowing they might be flying straight into an enemy they didn't understand. They had no promises of victory, only a determination that if the galaxy wanted to test humanity, they would get an answer loud enough to echo across the stars. As the alien fleet descended, something unexpected happened. The first strike, calculated, precise, delivered with the confidence of a superior empire, should have shattered Earth's defenses. Instead, it sparked something the attackers didn't anticipate. A counter-response fired back from humanity's ships with a force that made the intruders hesitate. For the first time since entering the system, their formation wavered. It wasn't advanced technology or ancient power that shook them. It was the realization that humanity wasn't afraid, that Earth wasn't collapsing, that every attack only made the defenders more determined to stand their ground. The aliens had assumed they were facing a quiet, unremarkable species. What they found instead was a world unwilling to surrender. And then, just as the aliens began to regroup, preparing for something far more devastating, a new signal appeared, one powerful enough to disrupt every sensor on both sides. A single pulse from somewhere deep in human territory. The aliens froze. The humans stared at their screens. No one understood what had just awakened. But whatever it was coming online. Every screen on Earth flickered at once, as if something had reached through the wires and touched every circuit. The strange pulse didn't look like anything humans had ever sent before, yet it came from deep within our own territories, somewhere past the orbit of Mars, in a region no one had ever paid much attention to. Engineers at Mission Control tried to trace it, but every time they narrowed it down, the signal shifted like it was alive, hiding its true source. People around the world felt the tension growing thicker by the second. News channels replayed the pulse again and again, trying to explain it. Some called it a glitch, others said it was a new defensive system. But the crews aboard the defense ships knew better. They felt the vibration ripple through the hull, a faint humming that didn't match any human engine. Even the alien fleet reacted. Their ships, which had moved with cold confidence before, now drifted in a loose pattern, as though they were unsure whether to advance or retreat. In the hours that followed, Earth's leaders scrambled to piece together what was happening. Scientists who had spent their lives studying deep space anomalies suddenly found themselves dragged into emergency meetings. They brought old research files, strange energy bursts detected decades ago, patterns buried under noise, unexplained signals that never repeated. Back then, no one considered them important. But now, as they laid the old data next to the pulse, a chilling truth began to form. The same signature had been here before, long before humanity had the technology to notice it. The idea that something ancient had been sleeping near our solar system unsettled everyone. Even more disturbing was the thought that it might have awakened only because the alien fleet arrived. The timing was too perfect to ignore. Meanwhile, on board Earth's defense vessels, the crews tried to stay focused. They went through emergency drills, recalibrated weapons, checked shields, and spoke quietly among themselves. They were ordinary people placed in extraordinary circumstances, and though none of them admitted it out loud, they all felt the same unease. It wasn't just the alien threat anymore. It was the sense that something else, something bigger, was stepping into the conflict. One ship in particular, stationed closest to the unknown signal, picked up faint whispers of energy that didn't match any known frequency. The readings didn't make sense. The ship's sensors showed patterns like waves folding into each other, shifting too fast for any computer to predict. Some crew members thought it might be an attempt at communication. Others feared it was a preparation, like some hidden force charging up. Back on Earth, the public began to speculate wildly. Some believed humanity had triggered an old weapon left behind by a lost civilization. Others said it might be a guardian of this region of space, something that had been dormant until now. The uncertainty spread, feeding the feeling that humanity was standing on the edge of something far beyond its understanding. And still, the alien fleet waited. They didn't fire. They didn't communicate. They hovered in a formation that looked almost cautious, as if they feared waking whatever had stirred. But they didn't retreat either. They were trapped between their mission and the possibility that they had triggered a force they couldn't control. The pulse came again stronger, clearer, impossible to ignore. Humans and aliens alike watched as a faint light appeared in the dark beyond Mars, spreading slowly like a sunrise in deep space. No one knew what was emerging. No one knew if it was friend or foe. But one thing was certain. The galaxy was about to learn something new about humanity's home. And Earth was no longer the quiet, unimportant world everyone thought it was. The light spreading beyond Mars grew brighter, but not in a way anyone expected. It wasn't a beam or a flare. It was more like the darkness itself was peeling back, revealing something hidden behind it. Both humans and aliens tracked the change in real time, their senses filling with data that made less sense the longer they looked at it. The light didn't follow normal physics. It pulsed in uneven rhythms, almost like breathing. On Earth, analysts tried to interpret the patterns, hoping they could decode a message or intention. Some argued that the unknown force might be reacting to the alien presence, as if it saw them as the threat. Others worried that it was reacting to both sides, anything that disturbed the space around it. No one dared assume it was friendly. Humanity had just met its first hostile visitors. The idea that something else, even more powerful, was waking up made the tension almost unbearable. Inside the defense fleet, crew members worked in tight shifts, keeping eyes on every sensor. They monitored the alien ships, careful not to provoke them. They also tracked the light spreading in the distance, unsure which direction danger might come from. Every moment stretched thin. Conversations stayed quiet, almost whispered, as if speaking too loudly might draw attention from the unknown force watching them. One of the smaller human vessels, positioned closest to the disturbance, began to pick up faint, structured patterns hidden inside the light. At first they thought it was interference, but as the patterns repeated, the crew realized something chilling. It resembled a kind of scanning, not a weapon, not an attack, more like the light was studying everything in range, mapping it, learning, and it wasn't just looking at ships, it was mapping Earth. The realization spread through command centers, sparking heated debate. If the unknown force had been dormant for centuries, why wake now? Why focus on humanity's homeworld? Some argued that the alien invasion had triggered it. Others suggested that humanity's rapid technological rise had finally reached the threshold needed to be noticed. Whatever the truth, Earth was now under the attention of something far older and far more advanced than the hostile fleet hovering beyond the moon. Meanwhile, the alien armada began shifting positions in small, careful movements. Their formations tightened around their central ships, almost like they were bracing for something. Human analysts noticed the change instantly. It wasn't an aggressive formation, it was defensive. The aliens who had arrived with such certainty and force were now acting like they feared what was waking near Mars. This raised new questions. If the invaders were so powerful, what could possibly intimidate them? In the midst of all this, a new problem surfaced. Unexplained disruptions began hitting communication lines across Earth's orbital network. Satellites flickered, signals cut in and out, and whole segments of the grid went dark for seconds at a time. Engineers first blamed the expanding light, but a few experts suspected something else, maybe even sabotage. If someone, or something, wanted to keep Earth isolated, cutting off its communication would be a perfect start, yet no one could confirm it. Every theory only deepened the mystery. The light beyond Mars continued to spread, slow and steady, as if whatever lay within was preparing to reveal itself fully. And both humanity and its attackers could only watch, not knowing whether the emerging presence would save them, or doom them all. The light beyond Mars kept expanding until it covered a stretch of space large enough to swallow whole fleets. It wasn't blinding, but it was impossible to ignore. Soft, steady, and unnervingly alive. Every ship, human and alien, watched it in silence. It felt like waiting for a curtain to lift on something no one was ready to see. The tension hung so heavy that even the calmest voices in mission control sounded tight. On Earth, people gathered around screens, barely speaking. News anchors tried to stay composed as they repeated the same updates, none of which offered comfort. The keywords echoing across broadcasts: unknown force, galactic threat, ancient signal. Human resilience only fed the mix of fear and curiosity spreading through every city. Humanity had never felt so small, yet so aware of everything happening in the space around them. In orbit, the defense ships drifted in silent formation. The crew aboard the closest vessel felt the vibrations growing stronger through the hull, as if the unknown presence was brushing against the ship to see what it was made of. Some crew members pressed their hands to the metal walls, almost expecting to feel a heartbeat underneath. They didn't find one, but the pulsing of the light outside made it easy to imagine there was something conscious watching them. Data streamed in faster than the analysts could process it. The patterns layered inside the light grew more complex, sharp, rising spikes mixed with long, sweeping curves. It was nothing like human or alien technology, yet something about the rhythm felt deliberate, like someone sending a message too advanced for either side to translate. Meanwhile, the alien fleet began adjusting its formation again. Their largest vessels slid into the front, shields flickering faintly. It looked less like they were preparing to attack Earth now, and more like they were preparing to defend themselves. Human commanders noticed it instantly, sparks of confusion passing through every control room. Why would an invasion force suddenly act like it needed protection? Before anyone could answer, the first wave of shock hit the solar system. Not a physical strike, but a massive gravitational ripple that swept through space like a silent quake. The human ships shuddered violently, systems flashing warnings. A few monitors cracked from the sudden force. Even Earth felt a slight tremor, barely noticeable, but enough to send scientists scrambling for explanations. The alien ships fared worse. Their formations staggered, several vessels flickering as their stabilizers struggled to keep up. For the first time, humans saw fear in their movements, genuine, uncontrolled fear. Then the ripple hit again, stronger. Alarms blared on every ship. People clutched consoles, bracing themselves as the unknown force continued to flex, like a giant stretching after a long sleep. The light's soft glow sharpened into thin, shimmering lines that cracked across the darkness. The lines weren't random. They formed shapes, long arcs and spirals, like the beginning of a doorway opening in space. Earth's analysts stared, unable to look away. Whatever was forming out there wasn't just energy. It had structure, intent, possibly intelligence. And then the communications blackout worsened. Entire networks dropped offline at once, plunging mission control into scattered islands of silence. Some ships lost contact with Earth entirely. Panic flickered in every voice as crews tried to re-establish links. Something was cutting them off, and fast. In the midst of the chaos, the light flared one final time, brighter than ever before. Every sensor maxed out, every screen whited over, and then, through the scorching brightness, a shape began to emerge, massive, silent, older than anything humanity or its attackers had ever seen. And it was waking, fully this time, its attention turning toward Earth, the alien fleet, and everything caught in the space between. The shape inside the light grew clearer, pushing through the last veil of brightness like something stepping out of a long-forgotten memory of the universe. Even with senses blinded, every ship felt its presence. Pressure built against hulls, a low hum vibrating through metal as if space itself was being reshaped around the emerging figure. No one could tell if it was a vessel, a construct, or something alive. All they knew was that nothing in the galaxy, human or alien, had recorded anything like it. When the screens finally flickered back, the shape resolved into a massive, layered form, almost like an ancient structure floating freely in space. It was smooth in some places and impossibly complex in others, covered in faint symbols that glowed with the same pulsing rhythm as the light. No engines, no weapon ports. Yet the sheer scale of it made both fleets look small. The aliens reacted first. Their ships fell into a sharp retreat pattern, pulling back several thousand kilometers as though hoping distance alone might save them. It was the most deliberate movement they had made since arriving, and it sent a shock through human command. If an invading fleet was trying to run, then whatever had appeared was far more dangerous than anything humanity had faced so far. Just as Earth's defense forces began to regroup, something unexpected happened. The massive structure turned not physically, but through a shift of energy, a subtle reorientation that every sensor detected. It wasn't looking at the aliens. It wasn't looking at Earth. It was looking past them, towards something approaching from far outside the solar system. At first, analysts thought the readings were distortions caused by the structure itself, but the signals repeated, becoming clearer with each pass. Something else, another fleet, was entering the outer edges of the system. Smaller than the alien invaders, but moving with precision and speed that set off new alarms. A second force had been watching too, and now it was coming. Earth scrambled to gather information, but with communications still unstable. Every answer arrived half complete. Some data suggested the approaching vessels were tracking the ancient structure directly. Others implied they were responding to the alien invasion. A few terrifying interpretations pointed to a third possibility: they were coming for humanity. Inside the defense ships, crew members whispered theories, each more unsettling than the last. Maybe the first alien fleet wasn't an invasion, it was a desperate attempt to destroy the ancient structure before it awakened. Maybe the second fleet wanted the same thing. Or maybe all three sides were about to collide around a secret Earth had never known it possessed. The structure pulsed again, brighter this time, sending another gravitational ripple across the system. Human ships steadied themselves. Alien ships scattered in fear. The second fleet accelerated, closing the distance faster than expected, as if drawn by the increasing energy. Earth's leaders argued over their next step. Should they prepare for a three-sided conflict? Attempt communication? Retreat to protect the planet? Every option carried risk. Every second felt heavier than the last. Then, without warning, the ancient structure emitted a sound not through air, but directly through the fabric of space. A low, resonant tone filled every ship and every control room, vibrating through bone and metal alike. It wasn't random. It wasn't noise, it was a signal. but not a warning, a call, and something in the distant dark answered. The answer to the ancient structure's call came as a tremor that rolled across the solar system, soft at first, then rising until even Earth's oceans felt the shift. Lights flickered across the structure's surface, symbols rearranging themselves like gears turning in a lock. The alien invaders tried to pull back farther, their engines glowing as they pushed to escape the growing pressure. The second fleet, still surging inward from deep space, suddenly slowed, almost as if they recognized the signal and were preparing for something monumental. Then everything stopped. The pulsing light froze mid-wave, gravity stabilized. Silence filled every ship, every control room, every corner of the sky. It was as if the universe held its breath. In the next moment, the ancient structure opened. A ring of blinding energy expanded outward from it. Not destructive, but startlingly precise, passing through human ships and alien ships like a wave of light through glass. Systems that had been malfunctioning snapped back online instantly. The communications blackout vanished. Earth's satellites flickered to life. Even life support readouts steadied. Whatever force the structure released, it wasn't meant to harm, it was meant to reset. And then the truth became clear. The second fleet hailed Earth first. Their message came in calm, measured tones, translated instantly by algorithms that had never seen their language but somehow understood it. They weren't an invading force, nor allies of the hostile aliens. They were a guardian species, keepers of ancient networks scattered across the galaxy. The structure awakening near Mars was part of a long-dormant defense array created millions of years earlier, designed to stabilize regions threatened by massive conflict. Humanity had triggered its awakening only by being caught between two opposing forces, and the first alien fleet, the ones who came with weapons ready, hadn't come to conquer Earth. They had come to destroy the ancient structure before it completed its activation, because they feared what it could do if left unchecked. In their desperation, they saw humanity as a barrier, not a target, and assumed Earth would fold quickly. They were wrong. As the shock settled, the ancient structure activated fully. A massive energy field formed around the solar system, shimmering like a dome stretching from the orbit of Mercury to the far edge of Pluto. The Guardian fleet announced that the field would protect Earth and its neighboring planets while they mediated the conflict. Human ships steadied themselves. The alien invaders, cornered by the rising energy, shut down their weapons. The Guardians moved into position, calm and unafraid. For a moment it felt like the galaxy itself had returned to balance. But just as Earth began to breathe again, the ancient structure shifted once more. It sent out a final pulse, one far stronger than the previous ones, so strong that it cut through every communication channel and reached deep into Earth's systems. Every screen turned black. Then a symbol appeared, one no human had ever seen, yet somehow felt familiar. A mark that didn't belong to the Guardians, nor the invaders, nor any known civilization. The Guardians fell silent. The invading fleet froze. Even the ancient structure dimmed, as though waiting, and Earth realized with a chill that the real awakening hadn't been the structure itself. It was whatever had just answered from somewhere far beyond the reach of any fleet. Something that knew Earth well enough to leave a message only humans could understand. The symbol lingered on every screen, glowing softly as if waiting for humanity to recognize something hidden deep in its shape. People across Earth stared at it, trying to understand why it felt familiar. It wasn't a word or a picture. It was more like a memory, something instinctive, almost comforting. And as scientists began to analyze the pattern, a quiet realization spread. The symbol matched ancient markings found on cave walls, pottery fragments, and long-forgotten human artifacts scattered across different cultures. Somehow, across thousands of years, generations of people had drawn pieces of this very shape without ever knowing why. The Guardians were the first to speak. Their voice came through steady and calm, explaining that the symbol was a signature, a mark left by the original architects of the ancient structures, beings so old that even the Guardians only knew fragments of their history. According to them, the symbol showing up specifically inside human systems meant something those ancient builders intended. It meant Earth wasn't just another planet caught in the middle of a conflict. It was part of a much older design. This revelation sent waves of confusion across both fleets. The invading aliens, who once believed the structure posed a threat to the galaxy, now held their position in uneasy silence. The Guardians, though calm, seemed just as puzzled, exchanging private signals among their own ships. Humanity hadn't just stepped into the galaxy, it stepped into a mystery older than any living civilization. The ancient structure slowly dimmed until only faint traces of its symbols remained. The energy dome around the solar system eased into a softer glow, stable and protective. Earth's leaders connected with the Guardian fleet through newly restored channels. For the first time since the entire ordeal began, the conversation centered on understanding rather than survival. The Guardians explained that the structure's final pulse had identified Earth as a key world, not a weapon. Not a danger, something more like a chosen point in the network. They couldn't explain why, but the meaning was clear. Humanity wasn't an accident in the galactic landscape. It had been part of a plan set in motion long before anyone alive had taken their first breath. The invading aliens, finally speaking through a translator, apologized for their actions. Fear had driven them, not hatred. They offered to assist in stabilizing the solar system's outer boundaries, hoping to avoid any future misunderstandings. Their retreat was calm, almost respectful, as if they now understood something about humanity they had never considered before. With the danger gone, Earth slowly exhaled. People returned to schools, to work, to quiet routines they once saw as ordinary but now felt precious. The defense ships drifted back toward the planet, greeted not as soldiers returning from war, but as witnesses to something extraordinary, something that changed humanity's place in the universe forever. As the weeks passed, scientists studied the symbol endlessly. They didn't unlock all its secrets, but one truth became clear. The ancient builders had left a message for humanity to find when it was ready. A reminder that, even in a vast galaxy full of powerful forces, Earth mattered in ways no one had realized. And so the story settled into a mere reminder of resilience, unity, and the strange, unexpected honor of being noticed by something far older than the stars themselves. Humanity didn't know what the future would bring, but it now understood one thing with absolute clarity: the galaxy would never again underestimate Earth.